Hey, can everybody hear me on the live stream? Can you hear me on this microphone? Get in the chat and tell me that my volume is good, please. Check one, two. JT, can you hear me? One, two, three. JT, let me know. Can you hear me? So right now it sounds good. Good. Three, two, one. Did you hear three, two, one? Just type a yes and we're good to go. Thank you. How about this new brick backdrop? How about the new brick home studio brick backdrop? Everybody like that? We are trying to figure this out, everybody. Working from home today. Thank you. Put a Modelo on it. Yes. Carl Stevens, Tyson Hughes, Kyle, Iron Maiden. Good to go. We're gonna get into Josh Jacobs today. I want to know if you want to franchise tag him, let him go, do a new deal, do a cap friendly deal. A lot of news on Josh Jacobs today. Like your opinion on that in the chat. For my Raider Nation mug. Out of the gate, JT. Good to see you on the YouTube live stream and on Raider Nation Radio as we open up the show from home today. From my home studio, if you're on the YouTube stream, you can see that my wife built me a brick backdrop. She ordered from Amazon. My wife gets 3 boxes from Amazon a day. She's the best wife of all time. And she ordered me a brick backdrop, which she put up some contraption here in my home studio, which is basically a tarp of bricks. So you don't have to see the rest of the room, which is okay. You know, we have all these levels of studios now. We have the unbelievable one at the Raiders. Their podcast radio studio is worth millions, plural. It's unbelievable. We have a beautiful studio at Lotus Broadcasting, and I do a lot of live streaming at home. So I'm home today. We had a couple of things had to get done around the house. So I'm here from home today, and we got a really packed show. Vinny Bonsignore, Raiders insider at the bottom of the hour. He's going to introduce us to the new coaching staff. There's a bunch of new coaches here. We're going to go coach by coach with Vinny to learn about the new coaching staff, which seems to have a lot of Raider fans triggered. Raider fans always concerned about a coach. Is he too old? Is he too young? Does he have experience? Does he run the ball? Whoa, whoa, whoa. These are all football men and some ladies who are in the league, which is fantastic. This is an inclusive franchise. The coaches on the Raiders have depth and knowledge. Yesterday, we found out about Joe Philbin, a former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, who I put out a tweet. He's a no-nonsense guy, right? He's a guy that wants to win. He's a guy that is really, nuts and bolts football guy. And I had Raider Nation clapping back at me. Well, how come he isn't a head coach anymore? Why was he at Ohio State? Is there something wrong being at Ohio State, being a head coach, being an offensive line coach for the Cowboys? The guy's got more experience in his pinky than most football fans have knowledge of the game. He's a former head coach. I like that with Antonio Pierce. I think that's a good thing to have more head coaches, including Marvin Lewis, who is the de facto. He's the mentor of Antonio Pierce. We know that Antonio Pierce has connections to Tom Coughlin. Whenever he needs Tom Coughlin will get on a plane and fly to Las Vegas and be in on meetings to help, along with Joe Philbin, former head coach, and some of the other coaches there. Oh, and by the way, Patrick Graham, who I would assume by next year will be a head coach in this league, unless he wants to stay with the Raiders in this position. He was in the cycle this year, and there were a couple of people hired over Patrick Graham who aren't as good as Patrick Graham. So we got another guy who's definitely, I can guarantee you, Patrick Graham will be a head coach in this league at some point, and he's on the Raiders staff. So with all of this happening right now, we're in a pretty good spot, I think. We, the season ticket holders, we, the members of Raider Nation, there's not going to be anything that's missed in a meeting. Okay, with Joe Philbin, Marvin Lewis, Antonio Pierce, Patrick Graham, right, Luke Getsy, there's going to be nothing that slips through the cracks in regards to the Raiders coaching staff. There are some new coaches that left other teams that went to a new city. Seattle, for example, Mike Macdonald, who has to build the staff, has to peel some people out from Baltimore, have to bring in new people. I'd worry about the new coaches who have never coached before. Antonio Pierce knows the building well. Tom Telesco knows a lot of coaches and executives in the league. Let me do some Raider therapy in the monologue. This is brought to you by Golden Entertainment. They have the Strat. They have Atomic Golf coming. They have March Madness. I'm going to be doing live shows from the Strat for March Madness like I do every year. And they own PT, 64 plus taverns here in Las Vegas. Best happy hour in town. That's 5 to 7, midnight to 2. So let me put on my Raider therapist hat. Will you all freaking calm down with the coaches? You didn't want Josh McDaniels. You ran him out of town, rightfully so. He didn't deserve to be the coach no longer because he didn't win. You didn't want him. I worked with him. The players worked with him like Max Crosby and Devontae. He's gone. You wanted him out. You all seem to have wanted Antonio Pierce. I mean, 90% of you has wanted AP. I call him coach. You all wanted him. You got him. And now he's got his mentor in Marvin Lewis and another former head coach in Joe Philbin. You got Patrick Graham, who rebuilt the defense and made it good. What more are you looking for? We played you the Luke Getsy sound. I think he won the press conference. He said everything. We'll be explosive. We'll run the ball. I mean, he got the memo. You don't think Luke Getsy read the chapter on Josh McDaniels as the offensive play caller and read that chapter on the plane and said, the last thing I want to do is kind of get the Raider Nation pissed off at me by saying all I'm going to do is run the football on first, second, and third down. Getsy said everything right, and he seems to be pretty knowledgeable, and he comes from that Packard tree. Vinny Bonsignore at the bottom of the hour on these coaches and how they're all connected to this tree of Mike McCarthy, Mike Holmgren, and the Packers. Little West Coast offense vibe going with a couple of experienced men, and then the other coaches who are going to fill out the staff. And I hope I get an opportunity to MC a lot of events in the offseason where the coaches show up at. And I'm looking forward to being introduced to some of the coaches the next time I'm in the building. So if you have an issue on anything that has to do with the coaching staff being filled, anything, bring it to me. I have the same philosophy all the time. I don't know the coaches when they're brand new. Some of them I do. Some of them have been with the Raiders more than once. They come back. It's good to recognize a friendly face. But the new guys who are coming in, I don't know anything about them other than Wikipedia, other than what their resume is, who they coach, what their record was. And now they get a fresh start with the silver and black. That's how this works. That's how this works. As we welcome these coaches, because you, the fans of the Raider Nation, hate to lose. So wouldn't you welcome in a new coach saying, man, there's a new guy, new vision. Maybe it's going to look a little bit different. I like what we got going here. I don't know how you have to be negative on a coach who's never coached a game for the Raiders yet. And you will be. I know you. I'm part of your brotherhood. I'm in the black hole. If you don't like the coach, I'm going to know about it by about week 3 to week 6. We're going to be ringing my phones off the hook, upset about the coaches or in love with the coaches. So that's part of the monologue if you want to get in 702 365 9200. Also, I want to get into the opening of the show. Today was Raider Day on SportsCenter. SportsCenter, Louis Riddick did a profile on the Raiders in the Raider offseason and what they need to do. Louis Riddick is a former Raider, played for the Raiders, and he did a deep dive. And basically the whole gist of it, as he was talking to Hannah Storm about it from ESPN, is that the Raiders need a quarterback. And they're at number 13. And how do they go get a quarterback from 13 to top 3 or 4 or 5? That really is going to be the biggest topic that we have this entire offseason. Who's going to be the quarterback, the veteran that comes in, or how is Tom Telesco going to trade up and get Jaden Daniels, or will he wait and take Bo Nix or J.J. McCarthy? And then they went on a deep dive on what the Raiders have. And then Louis Riddick had the needs of quarterback number 1, offensive line number 2, and D tackle number 3. I'm pretty pissed off with this D tackle position, as I've always been transparent with you. There's been a lot of young defensive tackles that have been drafted over the last couple of years since the team moved to Vegas, and none of them have developed yet into being potential Pro Bowlers. So you got to go out there and get veterans to plug a hole. And usually a veteran defensive tackle, with my knowledge of the game, a veteran defensive tackle is a little bit overweight. You know, he's a run stopper. You know, get good players in the past. You get a Ted Washington type guy, John Jenkins guy, just a big run stopper who normally is there to stop the run and can't play all 3 downs. They're there to stop the run on first and second down, and then they're not able to get to the quarterback, such as Chris Jones of Kansas City. Well, it's tough to find Chris Jones. You know, the Raiders had one of the greatest defensive tackles I've ever seen, died very early, in Darrell Russell. When Darrell Russell was drafted by the Raiders, he went to the Pro Bowl in back-to-back years. He had some problems off the field. He could have been a Hall of Famer. He was a Hall of Fame talent at USC, and he started off his first 2 seasons, that D tackle, super athletic. I like a defensive tackle that can get a push, stop the run, but get to the quarterback. It has been a bleeping black hole for this organization for a long time. We can't seem to get the kid who can do it. If it's Byron Young, great. If it's Nestor Jade Silvera, great. But there's no more poking around and reaching for a Cleve Farrell or to try to find a defensive tackle. Go get one who can stay on the field and make some plays. Louis Riddick had that there as a need. And then the offensive line, and then Josh Jacobs. So the topic today is basically going to be Josh Jacobs. In hour number 2 at 1 o'clock Pacific time, I'm going to lead with Deshaun Reed's column. He wrote a great column at The Athletic that I had today. Woke up this morning, was right in my inbox, and it was about 5 options for Josh Jacobs. And as I already threw that into the chat here on our YouTube page, what do you want to do with Josh Jacobs? Deshaun had 5 options: franchise tag him and trade him, sign him to a cap-friendly contract, let him go, don't offer him anything. So there's a whole bunch of options there for Josh Jacobs. I'll get into that as I lead the monologue off next hour. I think he needs to be back. I'm a fan of Josh Jacobs. He did not have a good year. His production plummeted, and he missed the last 4 games of the year. Normally, you don't get a raise when you do that, but I don't get in front of Josh's money. Antonio Pierce loves him. I don't know what Tom Telesco thinks of him. I'm sure he respects him, but he's the heart and soul Raider in that locker room. And I'll make the comparison to Bo Jackson, Marcus Allen, Tyrone Wheatley. We'll get to that next hour. But the last thing that I want to take a look at here on my phone as I screenshot it was Mike Tannenbaum of ESPN, who said something so outlandish a couple of days ago that I tweeted about it. He was talking about Russell Wilson being a backup for Aaron Rodgers. And I was in Maui in Hawaii, and I saw that in the morning, having a coffee on SportsCenter. And I don't like to tweet other than sunset photos when I'm on a trip. But I thought that Mike Tannenbaum lost his mind, actually saying that Russell Wilson, who's on the path to go to the Hall of Fame, should back up the egomaniac Aaron Rodgers. And I said, come on, Mike, you got to be better than that. Who's in charge of ESPN talent? But Mike Tannenbaum's been in the league over 25 years. So today on SportsCenter, here it is, Mike Tannenbaum broke down the Raiders. And he said the Raiders' offensive checklist. He said, number one priority, sign Russell Wilson to the veteran minimum. Whoa. Whoa. Veteran minimum for Russell Wilson. Didn't talk about a long-term contract. He said veteran minimum. And then he said draft quarterback J.J. McCarthy at number 13 overall. And I said, whoa, wait a second. Does that make sense? And I said, hell yeah, it makes sense. If you can get Russell Wilson at the veteran minimum, which I don't think you can get him at. I think Russell Wilson and his wife, Sierra, is too proud to play for the veteran minimum. Obviously, the Denver Broncos are on the hook for what? Like $250 million. When they signed him for over 230 plus million guaranteed, they're going to cut him. So all the money's been paid in the guaranteed money that Russell Wilson has. And if the Raiders can go surf around and get him at the veteran minimum, you better believe I love that. Russell Wilson at the veteran minimum, not the veteran maximum or a new deal. Oh, that got my attention today. And then J.J. McCarthy at 13, the quarterback out of Michigan who won a national championship, he could end up being great. He could be better than Jaden Daniels. He could end up being a lot better than Aiden O'Connell. I don't know how good he's going to be, but he was really good at Michigan, but he played on a really good team with a really good coach in Jim Harbaugh, and who was kind of his favorite player of all time at Michigan. So that was like the perfect storm for him. Will J.J. McCarthy be ready to play at 13? No, he won't be ready to play. Could you draft J.J. McCarthy at 13 and park him behind Aiden O'Connell for the first 4 or 5 games? Absolutely. Can you still go out and get a veteran? Absolutely. But I wanted to throw that out because that jumped out at me. I said, oh my God, Russell Wilson at the veteran minimum. Everybody, here's the quick reminder. Russell Wilson needs a job. He's not good. He's great. Last year, you thought he didn't have a good year. He had a pretty good year. His quarterback rating was really good. He played for a coach who wanted to run him out of the organization. Is Russell Wilson a bit bizarre? Yeah, he's a bit bizarre. He's got a wife who is pretty popular. I think she wants to live in Vegas. I would guarantee you she wants to live in Vegas and do a show at the Fontainebleau, not in the main theater because she can't fill it up, but in the lounge. She'd do pretty good at the Fontainebleau 3 nights a weekend, hanging out there doing a show. So I can guarantee his wife wants to come here. Is Russell Wilson a locker room cancer? How dare you say that? He has the Russell Wilson patch of Walter Payton on his jersey. He's an NFL Man of the Year. No one who goes to and basically builds children's hospitals like Peyton Manning and goes visits kids anonymously who are going through pediatric cancer is a locker room cancer. Okay, so stop this Russell Wilson's a bad guy. Is he different? Yeah. Does he dress different? Does he look more GQ than NFL? Absolutely. Can Russell Wilson be reborn? Look at his age compared to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a freak show, a nut job, crazy, just out of this world and blew out his Achilles. Russell Wilson didn't blow out his Achilles. He's completely healthy, and he's beat every team in this league and played in 2 Super Bowls and won 1. Everybody here knows the comparison to Jim Plunkett, who should be in the Hall of Fame, and the great Jim Plunkett won 2 Super Bowls and had a Super Bowl MVP. Russell Wilson's stats and his career at a really high level. I don't think Russell Wilson fits with the Raiders. I don't. I am not a champion for Russell Wilson today. I'm just telling you what's being reported today on SportsCenter by Mike Tannenbaum, and I thought it was a pretty juicy topic. I really do. To get a guy at the veteran minimum, and he's Russell Wilson. How would Raider Nation feel with Russell Wilson coming out of the tunnel with Max Crosby to the right, Josh Jacobs to the left, and Davante Adams behind him? You think you got a pretty good team? You think you got a playoff team with Russell Wilson leading you out completely healthy with a brand new offense, heavy loaded on running the ball? Yeah, you're going to win more games than lose. I can promise you that. But he might not be the fit. Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco are in charge. Okay, they're in charge. They're going to try to find the right chemistry for the Raiders. Don't get crazy. I'm not saying JT the Brick, clip it. Everyone likes to clip these reels, man. You clip one thing that one guy says, you throw it out there. No, I'm not saying go get Russell Wilson. Mike Tannenbaum said it's a priority to get Russell Wilson. We put that in the monologue. And then lastly, again, as I said, Deshaun Reed's column on Josh Jacobs is pretty good on what to do with Josh. In the NFL, automatically, you're not guaranteed a job at the running back position. You're not guaranteed a job at the running back position because you're a great Raider. Marcus Allen is the best example. He butted heads. Mr. Davis butted heads with him. Mark Davis put that back together. Mark Davis put back the relationship, Mark Davis of Marcus Allen, with the Raider Nation. And now wherever I go, I see Marcus Allen in Vegas. He loves the Raiders. He had an unbelievable career with Kansas City and the Raiders. That doesn't mean it's Josh Jacobs' birthright to retire a Raider. Running backs don't retire with the team they came in with. Look at Derrick Henry now as he waves goodbye and he's available. I think the three great running backs that are available now via the franchise tag or going somewhere else are Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, and Josh Jacobs. I think the Dallas Cowboys are going after all three. Jerry Jones wants one of those guys because he thinks he's on the verge of going to a Super Bowl. I thought the Cowboys were on the verge of going to the Super Bowl. And if they could get him instead of Tony Pollard, how good would Josh Jacobs play in Dallas behind that offensive line? Really good. So the Raiders got to make a decision if they want to keep him. Can they get him in a cap-friendly deal? And that's what Tom Telesco, I'm assuming, is doing. I'm assuming he's going to do that and look at the numbers here because the Raiders have 35+ million in cap space, and we'll get into that with Vinny Bonsignore. If you want to tag Josh Jacobs and you tag him at over $13 million coming off the season he just had, missing 4 games, it's a big number. It's a really big number that affects the Raiders cap going forward. It's a lot of money. And I don't get in front of Josh's money. I've only interviewed him once. I don't know him well, but I respect the hell out of him. So those are 3 big topics. Russell Wilson, according to Mike Tannenbaum, priority number 1. Louis Riddick, also on SportsCenter, priority, getting a quarterback. And then third priority is Josh Jacobs. What do you do with him? Tag him, work off the Deshaun Reed column, give him all the credit for writing that. And Vinny Bonsignore coming up here at the bottom of the hour. Vinny will join us and we'll talk about some of the new coaches and their style and what could happen going on. I mean, it's the off season, everybody. We're officially in the dead zone. I came up with that word. That's mine 20 years ago. The dead zone is at the end of the NFL season, after the Super Bowl, before the combine. Really, the combine's the dead zone too, but it'll matter a lot for us here locally. But the time between the Super Bowl and the NFL draft, as the NBA is on their all-star break, is the dead zone of sports. A lot of people take vacation. A lot of people run and hide. A lot of people don't want to do any radio because they got to well down and dig for topics. And we don't do a lot of movies. We don't do a lot of cheeseburger talks. And what's your favorite restaurant in Vegas? We want to stick to sports. So I think I gave you a lot to put out there. If you want to jump in on any of it, 702-365-9200. You know, I'm a NASCAR guy. We're going to catch up with Larry McReynolds. He was a crew chief for Dale Earnhardt Sr. when Dale Sr. won his only Daytona 500. He's going to recap the Daytona 500. We're going to look ahead to what Vegas has with 2 NASCAR races, 1 regular season and 1 postseason race coming up. A couple of people are in the chat on Jimmy G ties. Here's Ty Davis. I'll be crazy if Jimmy G tries signing a team-friendly deal. Look, I don't think that's going to happen, but anything can happen, and it usually does. Football's a little bit crazy, and that's why we have some of the most notorious fans in all of football. And again, I look to hear from you. If not, I just talk for 2 hours at a fast pace with great guests, good energy, and I lead into Q. We got great partners and advertisers, and we want to go big every day on the show. But there's a caveat to that. We count on Raider fans participating. I'm not going to talk for 2 hours about potentials that are not going to happen. I don't do pie in the sky fantasy radio. Who are we going to get in the second round of the draft? Because no one knows who we're going to get in the second round of the draft. I'm going to talk about team needs. I'm going to talk about the chemistry of the team. I'm going to talk about the fan base, the coaches, what we know. And then we'll speculate and have some fun about what's going to happen going forward. But the priorities, I agree with Louis Riddick. Got to get a quarterback. We must get a quarterback now. This is one of the rare times the Raiders are close. They don't have the perfect draft pick. I didn't want to lose games at the end of the year. I wanted to win, and the Raiders did. If the Raiders would have lost out, we could have the 5th or 6th pick. We wouldn't have Antonio Pierce. He wouldn't have got the job. So it was more important for Antonio Pierce to win down the stretch and keep his job. And then as the Raiders went from the 6th pick overall to the 9th to the 12th to 13, you got the coach you want, but you don't have the ideal pick to go get a quarterback. But Tom Telesco is good at trading up, or maybe the quarterback will fall to the Raiders. Don't know, but it's going to be fun to watch. I love the fact that we're in the hunt. We are in the hunt. The Raiders have the ability to get a franchise quarterback. They got a lot of money in cap space. They got a really good defensive coordinator and the cornerstone of a great defense. Man, this thing could get really good. A lot of people are saying if the Raiders just pile on and build on for one more free agent and draft class on defense, this could be a top 7 or 8 defense, which could lead you to the playoffs, even if the offense takes a little bit of time to get going. But my gut feeling tells me from Radio Row at the Super Bowl, the hiring of Luke Getsy and Joe Philbin, that this team, as of today, it could change, is building around Davante Adams. Davante Adams has got something going on that I can't figure out. This franchise coaching staff is starting to feel a lot like the NFC East and the New York Giants with Antonio Pierce back in the day, and the Green Bay Packer tree, which is the fundamentals of the West Coast offense with Mike Holmgren. Clearly what we've seen in the past with a really good coach in Mike McCarthy, a Super Bowl coach who knows offense. Getsy now and what these other coaches look like here. So do you agree with this? Or do you look at it saying, I'll believe it when I see it? Those are all the topics that I throw out. Vinny Bonsignore will join us in 5 minutes, and he's going to introduce us to some of the coaches. Vinny's wrote a lot of content about that. Monologue brought to you by our great friends, the 872 Laborers, led by Tommy White. They build the city on time and on budget. Construction, it gets done with the 872 Laborers, proud partners of our show. That's the monologue. We put it on YouTube. I don't want you to watch the whole show. I don't want to watch the whole show. I want you to listen to the whole show because we got a lot of partners here. But every day I'll throw about 27 minutes to an hour on the YouTube feed in the first hour of the show. Love you to sign up. We got a bunch of people in there now. YouTube, JT the Brick, YT, subscribe and like, and then start sharing it with your friends. And you can see how a radio show is built behind the scenes, which, as everybody in the chat sees, no notes, no teleprompters, no leaflets of paper. It's all from me to you, man. From what I know about sports in my mind, I give it directly to you, opinionated, high energy, and fast paced. That's all I do. Some heavy lifting in the offseason until we get to the draft, until we get to free agency. And I think the Raiders are going to be active in both. When we come back, Vinny Bonsignore will join us. We'll talk to Vinny about the coaches, what trend he sees with the coaches coming up, what he sees happening going forward, and if he likes the coaching staff or not. Also a comment on Josh Jacobs as we continue. Live from my studio, the Brick House, we call it, because my wife put some work into the studio. I think it looks pretty good as we begin the show. Vinny B coming up next. This is the flagship of the Silver and Black. All right, man. The monologue is done, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. All right, let's read some of this in the chat. What do we got going on? Guy wants to go see the Bob Marley flick. I do too. I want to see it in the movies. I called Michael Mayer in the second round. Tyson Hughes, I say we go for the number 1 pick. Really? You want to go from the number 1 pick? That's Caleb Williams. That will be 3 first-round picks. If you want to give up 3 first-round picks for Caleb Williams, I'm fine with that. Hey, going forward here, we're going to have problems here in Vinny because I don't have the setup here for the guest yet. We're working on that. So if you want to listen to Vinny, you're going to have to download the app and listen on the radio or listen on your app if you can do both things. But you're not going to be able to hear Vinny until I'm in the studio, and today I'm working from home. So I apologize for that. Yeah, if the Bears pick, I say 3 number 1s. No, I'm not into 3 number 1s, everybody. I'm not a 3 number 1 guy. I don't want to give up 3 number 1 picks. D. Keegan says, don't be surprised if Aiden O'Connell wins. I would agree. I think right now, Aiden's the front runner to start, unless it's someone like Baker Mayfield, or if they're able to get Kirk Cousins. Adam says there's no guarantee we get our quarterback if we trade up to the third spot. I disagree. You trade up to number 3, you're going to get Jaden Daniels. I think that's the guy they want, and he'll be available at number 3. And if he's not, and you take him number 2, we'll get Drake May, who could be even better. Smash the like button. I agree. Everybody, smash the like button if you haven't done that. Deshaun Hughes said, would I pick Caleb over Jaden all day bleeping long? Caleb Williams is the next talent as good as Mahomes. It's Caleb Williams and everybody else. Caleb Williams is a rock star. I'd do anything to get him, but 3 first-round picks, I don't think Tom Telesco wants to do that in his first draft. If he does, I'm behind it. Caleb Williams is clearly better than Jaden Daniels and Drake May. He's more like Mahomes than those other guys. And if I'm wrong, you know where to find me. Okay. Yeah, in this, Russell Wilson doesn't fight for a job against a rookie, everybody. Russell Wilson is bleeping great. He's a potential Hall of Famer. He ain't competing with no rookie. If the Raiders bring him in, he's the starting quarterback. He's not competing against a rookie. Russell Wilson, have you lost your mind? You don't, Russell Wilson ain't competing with Aiden O'Connell or a rookie. You get Russell Wilson, he starts day one, and he's an elite quarterback. He ain't competing with anybody. All right? That's nonsense. Pedro says, let's trade for the dude from the Bears. That'd be Justin Fields. I'm also okay with that. I think Justin Fields has got a lot more upside now than he did with the Bears. All right. Yep. Ready. All right, Luke Getzey, who met the media, and he's welcoming himself to this great community of Las Vegas. We should welcome him in. One of the new coaches with the Silver and Black. Every week we have the pleasure of talking to Vinny Bonsignore from Vegas Nation, our flagship radio station, and the Las Vegas Review Journal. So, Vinny, I'm just going to wind you up and let you go. I wanted you to introduce our audience. I know you do it on your show in the morning, to some of the new coaches here. So let's fire away first with Luke Getzey, what we need to know about him, his tree, and his style of offense. Mhm. Let's move to quarterback coach and what you would think of the development of the quarterback position. Even though the Raiders now have Aiden O'Connell, we're aware of that, but they could get a veteran or move up in the draft and get a quarterback or wait at 13. How important is that position in this staff underneath Luke Getsy? Mm-hmm. Vinny Bonsignor is our guest. I want to go back to Joe Philbin and knowing him. I've interviewed him in the past, and I call him a no-nonsense guy. His recent stop at Ohio State, the Cowboys on the offensive line. He was a head coach for the Miami Dolphins. We saw him on Hard Knocks. I'm getting a lot of pushback from Raider fans saying he wasn't hardcore enough. He didn't have a personality. The guy's a head coach in the league. He's another head coach with Marvin Lewis in the building. So on a tough day, on a bad practice, if Antonio Pierce is having a coaches meeting, he's got Marvin Lewis to the left, Joe Philbin to the right, other coaches with experience. I think that can only help. Now, I'm not saying Joe Philbin is going to be a head coach again in this league. If he's successful here with the Raiders, that could happen. But I think he's the right guy at the right time because experience counts with a coach who just had the interim tag ripped off and he's becoming a head coach for the first time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Vinny Bonsignor is our guest. Check him out on all his platforms. So with Patrick Graham, Vinny, it just seems like the defensive staff, most of it was going to be retained. The offensive staff from Bo Hardegree and everyone else was going to be let go. And the defense would be more stable with the coaching and the philosophy there. And then there's a new philosophy led by Luke Getsy. So with Patrick Graham's staff going forward and what you saw last year, I think the big winner is Raider Nation that Patrick Graham didn't leave for a head coaching job. I think he's more qualified than the head coach that's in Seattle now or in some of these other markets. You didn't get Patrick Graham as a head coach. Bill Belichick didn't get a job. Either did Pete Carroll and Mike Vrabel. And I believe Patrick Graham will be a head coach in the next cycle or two more cycles. And the Raiders have to take advantage of this moment, having Patrick Graham just tightening up the defense a little bit more so it's a playoff defense going forward. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Vinny Bonsignor, as we wrap it up, the number one story as I hit the air, number one on ESPN.com. Antonio Pierce, Raiders have Mahomes rules for playing the Chiefs. And I'm sure you're aware of this from Max Crosby's The Rush podcast on, going after Mahomes. And I wonder the way the league looks at his comments here overall. We both know Antonio Pierce. You always ask the first question. I interview him up in the building. I love this energy. He's not talking about injuries. He's talking about playing him the way the Pistons played Jordan, which was physical. Where is the line on what you can say when it comes to the face of the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, going forward as a rival and a rivalry coach that needs to beat this team going forward? Where's the line that you can't cross, Vinny? Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, I thought it was perfect. I think that's what you have to do if you're the head coach of the Raiders. You have to establish the rivalry because it hasn't been a rivalry. Kansas City has been owning the Raiders in this dynasty run. They're now officially a dynasty with 3 Super Bowls in 5 years. The Raiders were the last team to beat them. And I think Antonio Pierce verbally has to remind not only the Raider fans, but everybody else that the Raiders are here to stay. Vinny, finally, go ahead. Hmm? Yeah. Yes. Mhm. Yep. All right, Vinny, last one. I kind of want our listeners to hear your calendar going forward because, look, I could go balls out every show and go quarterback. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait till the draft. I got to make sure that the show has a pace to it. Every day, I can't be sitting here going franchise tag Josh Jacobs because I want the show to have a flow and talk about everything going on in Raider Nation. You have a calendar in front of you with the combine, the draft. So walk us through, and these fans, the next maybe 30 to 60 days on what the world looks like in Raider Nation with the calendar. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Last one, a quick follow up. Do you like where the Raiders are in free agency? Because the fans don't know a lot about Tom Telesco and what he wants to do year one. I know Dave Ziegler wasn't big on going crazy in free agency, even though they made the Devontae Adams trade. But with the cap space available, the added space that Jimmy G and the suspension is adding to the Raiders, are you optimistic they're going to be big spenders, medium, or just kind of pick and choose? What's your gut tell you? Mm-hmm. 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 Vinny, let's hit your proud partners on the way out, and thanks for coming on. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Vinny. We'll talk to you next week. Always appreciate you. Vinny Bonsignor, really good. 15 minutes on the new Raiders coaches, the tree that those coaches come out of. He's heading to the combine with Q, so we'll have the Raider Nation coverage for you from the combine. And combine is fun. It could be a little bit sticky on interviewing certain players that'll never be Raiders, but that's part of doing the due diligence. You got to watch the combine. You got to watch them compete. You got to get to know the players. Look at Michael Mayer last year. Look at Trey Tucker at the Senior Bowl and the franchise going forward. We're going to talk about Josh Jacobs at the top of the hour and what the options are for the running back of the Silver and Black. All right, short one coming back. All right, everybody, I'm going to wrap this thing up here in a bit. We got some interviews coming up next hour. And again, we'll have this all figured out on how to connect the sound and all that. In the studio, it's a little bit easier. At home, you know, I got this Yeti microphone. I got my headset. I got my camera. I got my computer. Trying to figure this all out. And if you got any ideas on how to do that, it's pretty complicated, but I'll end up figuring it out. What do you think of what Vinny had to say about these coaches? Are you good with the coaches, or we expecting Cliff Kingsbury? And everybody's still hurt that they didn't get Cliff Kingsbury over Getsy. Raider Nation Drinking Club, Thor and his group, Josh and Zeus need to be a two-headed monster. Yeah, I agree with that. MB says give Zeus the keys and draft another running back to spell him. Well, the only problem there is if Zeus gets banged up and the Raiders have a rookie running back who's never played, that could be a disaster. That could be a disaster. Need a running back on this offense. Antonio Pierce wants to run the ball. I think Josh Jacobs and Zeus for another year make a lot of sense to me. You know, the running game is going to be really important going forward. And you know I like to pass. And Devontae's here, and Michael Mayer's here, and Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker. You know, as Louis Riddick said today, they want to have a play action team. Well, the only way you're going to have play action is you got to run the ball heavy on first down or second down. Last year, the one big thing about Derek Carr being gone and Jimmy Garoppolo is I thought the Raiders were going to be better on third down, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, because McDaniel's ability to call plays to the tight end and the slot receiver on top of Devontae, and Garoppolo being really good at the line of scrimmage. It was a disaster. It was an epic fucking disaster. They couldn't figure that out. Couldn't do it. So now you got Luke Getsy. I don't know what he's going to do on third down. On 3rd and 4, is he going to want to run with Zeus or Josh Jacobs to get the first down, or is he going to put the ball in the air? I don't know. I have no idea. But I was there for that Tyson Bagent game. And Chicago beat the Raiders, and Luke Getsy called that game. And Tyson Bagent played well, and they ran the ball down the Raiders' throat. Raiders couldn't stop the run, and they ran it hard. And they weren't as good as the Raiders, and they dominated the Raiders that day with their offensive game. Problem with running the ball is that when you run it on 1st and 2nd down, everybody knows you're throwing it on 3rd. You better be efficient, because we weren't efficient last year. Hey, we got a live stream tonight, everybody, at 6 p.m. Pacific. And we're going to rip the roof off for about 45 minutes, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern. Please be a part of that and share it if you can. Hey, Bobby, what was the final last night? Was it 6-3? 5-3. And top of the hour, as we talked about, we'll get into Josh Jacobs right out of the break. Into Larry Mack. Okay. That'll take us to what time? About. No, you don't have to tell me. Just text me. Well, Vegas had life on the Carlson goal. Dan Duba on the call, but they lose. And look, this is not a perfect season for the Vegas Golden Knights. It's not going to be perfect. This season is about Vegas having a high seed, being fresh, ready, healthy heading into the postseason. I like the regular season. I go to games. I like what Vegas is doing. I like the coach. I like everybody. None of these games matter. None of them. It's like the NBA if you're a 1 or 2 seed. You're Milwaukee or Philadelphia, you're one of the 2 seeds. You're not worried about Oklahoma City. You're not freaking out about Minnesota possibly being the best team. You just want to get into the playoffs. And I have a lot to say about the NBA over the last couple of days. But for the Vegas Golden Knights, just be healthy. William Karlsson, Jonathan Marchessault, Pietrangelo, Stone, get into the playoffs close to 100%, and then just start burying teams in the playoffs. You've got to do it on the road. In the conference finals, you go do it on the road. They're Stanley Cup champs. They're not going to win every game. Thanks to everybody on the live stream that's there. Appreciate it. Thanks for subscribing, hitting the like button. We'll be on tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific. You know, I put out the show tweet about Mike Tannenbaum saying he loves the plan of the Raiders signing Russell Wilson on Twitter at JT the Brick. GB says no to Russell Wilson, not a Raider locker room fit. How the hell do you know who fits in the Raiders locker room, GB? How in God's name do you know who fits in an NFL locker room? Are you in that locker room? Do you know who fits in the locker room? You know if Nate Hobbs is a better guy than Russell Wilson? You know if Jacorian Bennett is a better teammate than Russell Wilson? LaShawn Ford says, hell no, Russell Wilson is not a Raider. He's been washed. He's a retread quarterback. We've been doing that for a long time. We need to go up and draft our guy. I don't disagree on going up and drafted a guy. I disagree that Russell Wilson is washed. He's not washed. You know who was washed at one point in time? Fact, Jim Plunkett. Jim Plunkett was washed. He was done. He was thinking about retiring. He told me. Jim Plunkett, after the Patriots and 49ers beatdown, where he physically was so done, he didn't know if he was going to play. And the great Al Davis, the Maverick, said, Jim, I'm bringing you over. You got to rest. You're not going to play. You're going to rest to be ready. And Jim Plunkett went on to be one of the greatest Raiders of all time. Was Jim Plunkett washed when he came from the 49ers and the Patriots? A lot more than Russell Wilson. And Jim Plunkett went on to greatness. Don't knock a player who's playing football competitively at the highest stage, is taking a beating, and looks for a new chapter in their career. That's what the Raiders have been built on. Bringing guys who were forgotten about and bringing them to the Raiders, and then their career went to the next level. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Hour number 1, monologue, Vinny Bonsignor, the new brick backdrop. Look at it, right? You like that here? Like the studio? I think I'll be in my other studio tonight in the front of my house for the live stream, 6 p.m. Pacific. Again, we're trying to grow this platform, so please hit like and subscribe. And the best way you can help me going forward is by letting people know we have a live stream. If people don't hear this show, they're not going to know. People who hear this show will find out about what we do at 6 p.m. tonight from you. So send out a tweet, put something up on Facebook. I greatly appreciate it. And I hope to see you tonight, 6 p.m. We're on the live stream, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it. Thanks.